So, Last of Us Part 2 was pretty good. Oh wait, no. Art is so disposable, man. Just like everything else really, it is entirely dictated by how far the technology surrounding the medium has come. Like, you look at the Sistine Chapel, right? I mean, it's pretty good, all things considered. But that's because paint isn't super complicated. You know, colors are easy. You mix red and blue, you get purple. You get purple, obviously. Everyone knows that. So it's not really the tools we marvel at, it's the technique. Because you can have all the fancy paints in the world, but if you haven't quite figured out the concept of shading or depth, you're going to end up with something like this. Jesus, look at her fucking hands. Why does the baby look like a stepdad? Movies are not far off. Once we figured out how to add audio to film without the creepy man playing Maple Leaf Rag on the piano in the corner of the room for some reason, everything else was gravy. Sure, all the CGI and special effects are nice, but people still like Citizen Kane well enough, even if it doesn't have Iron Man. But with video games, the technology is way important. You can't make a game better than Space Invaders on hardware that barely runs Space Invaders. And with the fucking speed that technology is advancing, that doesn't give your game a long time to be prom queen. I mean, in 2005, this is what an iPod looked like. Fast forward 15 years and I am still a virgin. What the fuck? So you make a game and it's pretty good. And then 8 minutes later, Sony invents the PlayStation 2 and now it looks like dog shit. And even in the best case scenario, when you make a game and everything works well and the graphics are great and the code is wet, I don't know computer science stuff, it's still just crazy expensive to throw all that stuff out and start with a totally new canvas. But what if, and don't tell anyone I told you about this, but what if there was a way to reuse a good portion of your game's assets, world building, systems, brand, and that sweet soggy code with a little thing called the letter 2. If you look at the Game of the Year nominees over the last 5 years, less than half are new or original IPs. Everything else is either a sequel, a spin-off, or a remake of a sequel. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing by any means, but I am saying that's a lot of games ending in numbers. Like, they made Assassin's Creed, right? And that was pretty good. And then they made Assassin's Creed 2, and that was really good. And then they made a lot more. Can you guess how many? I'll give you a hint, it's 42. But what's interesting is that video games seem to be the only medium where the sequels are pretty consistently better than the originals. Uncharted 4, Batman Arkham City, Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, Persona 5, Left 4 Dead 2, Dishonored 2, Street Fighter 2, Halo 2, Half-Life 2, fucking Metal Gear Solid 3 again! So, the pros of making a video game sequel are pretty obvious. You're given the opportunity to make something that looks, sounds, and feels better than what came before. Take Doom Eternal, for example. Now, Doom 2016 is amazing in its own right. It's this outrageous, ultra-violent, mindless bloodbath of ripping and tearing through hordes of scary boys. Wall-to-the-balls fun. It is a cartoon of a cartoon. Not so much Tom and Jerry as it is Itchy and Scratchy. When your conservative Christian parents hear the words video game, this is what they imagine. Compared to Doom Eternal, this shit is trash. It is cringe. Get it the fuck away from me. Now you can dash and swing around the battlefield. All the enemies have different weapon-based weaknesses, so you're constantly flipping through your arsenal. They added a fucking laser sword and a grappling hook. Are you kidding me? Ooh, and that soundtrack. It is without a doubt the most frenetic game I've ever played. I've been using a mouse and keyboard since 2013, and this is the first game to make me ditch the weapon wheel and just start using the number keys. This shit, it's too slow. It's for donkeys. I want to be killing demons now, not 0.3 seconds from now. Doom 2016 is one of the best FPS campaigns of the decade, but Eternal is the best FPS campaign, period. Unfortunately, not all sequels have been blessed in the same way. Sometimes you make a game so good and widely beloved that going back and tinkering with the game's style or gameplay can actually kind of ruin the experience. Sort of like Doom Eternal. Now, here's the deal. As a rule of thumb, I like to try and keep things positive on this channel. I really love video games, and I feel like there are plenty of people out there making videos about shitty games for easy laughs, and that's not something that I'm personally interested in. I think if a criticism isn't constructive, then it's not actually worth an awful lot. But moreover, I really truly respect the talent and love that goes into making these things, and if Hugo Martin or anyone who worked on this game, or any of the games I talk about for that matter, were to see one of my stupid little videos and feel like I was throwing them or their work under the bus for the sake of a joke, I don't think I would be able to forgive myself. So, with that out of the way, you fucking donkey-brained idiot. How do you fuck things up this badly? You're gonna force me to keep changing weapons every 5 seconds with these bullshit weak points when all I want to use is the super shotgun the whole time? And you swapped out the dark, gritty vibe for this plastic video gamey shit? Oh, and your boss fights are the fucking worst. How are you gonna show me all these sick, giant killing demon mechs? And then put a giant demon in front of me and not let me get in one of the goddamn mechs? Oh, and then there's this fucking cunt. The whole fun of the game is just going around and getting fucking stuck in, and then this sci-fi rim looking fiend shows up and I have to stop what I'm doing and wait for him to attack me first? Why would you fuck with the flow and pacing of your game like that? I'll fucking kill you. I'll kill your whole goddamn family, Hugo Martin. I don't give a flip. My point is that trying to make a sequel to your super popular game is actually a super scary prospect. People grow really attached to these things and tend to get a little upset if they feel let down. And even though I really loved The Last of Us Part 2 and think that 90% of the complaints about it are fucking asinine, I can at least sympathize with the people who feel like they didn't get the game they were being sold. I too have been burned in the past. So, as the world's smartest and most handsome video games man on the internet, I have spent the last month and a half using my giant handsome brain to find the formula for the perfect video game sequel, and have distilled my findings down into 2 equally smart and handsome steps. Smart and handsome step number 1, revisit old locations. This is a really cool trick because you actually get the opportunity to reuse old level design and pass it off as fan service. Things like returning to Anor Londo in Dark Souls 3 or Red Dead 2, which put the entire map from the previous game in the sequel for some reason. It's a nice tip of the fedora to the previous game, while also giving the player something familiar to explore and admire how things have changed over time. I especially like the Dunwall Tower level in Dishonored 2, which is ripped straight from Dishonored 1, except now it's been taken over by spooky witches, so it's all covered in corpses and other Goosebumps type shit. It's cool because, just like the character you play as, who spent most of their life in the tower, you yourself are familiar with the area from the previous game, but now it's in an entirely new context. And even though it's all messed up, there's something comforting and nostalgic about it. Kinda like coming home for Christmas and fucking your ex-girlfriend. But the best example by far is the Shadow Moses mission in Metal Gear Solid 4, where you go back to the area from the first game, but recreate it with technology 2 decades more advanced. And even though the snowy landscapes have never looked better visually, the island is a dilapidated husk of its former self, perhaps best left in the past, but reluctantly thrust back into the limelight, serving as a perfect analogy for Solid Snake himself, and kind of Metal Gear Solid 4 as a whole. I don't have a joke for this bit, I just really like Metal Gear Solid. And I know I just said MGS4 was the best example of this trick, but also the best example of this trick as well is also Pokemon Gold and Silver, where you get to go back and revisit the entire Kanto region and explore and see how things have changed since Red and Blue. And I know I'm just kind of rehashing what I just said before, but it's just a pretty solid segue into the next bit of the video. Which is smart and handsome step number 2. Bring back the playable character from the previous game as an NPC, preferably as either a boss fight or a close ally you work alongside, presuming you do not play as the character from the previous game in the sequel, in which case you do not need to worry about this step. I realise that isn't the sexiest title in the world, but, you know, still good. After you get all the Kanto region badges in Pokemon Gold and Silver, you get access to Scary Mountain. And at the top of Scary Mountain is a boy. And so you says to the boy, you says, "Hey, boy." At which point it is revealed that boy is the character you played as in the last game, and now you have to fight yourself from the past in the future today. This is, to use the technical term, fucking bananas. And the fact that Pokemon has never done either of those two things since makes me a very angry anime boy. I'm talking straight up Evangelion Rogers. Fighting the main character from the last game is such a power play, and it works 100% of the time. 99% of the time. The Borderlands and Walking Dead games are pretty well known for its returning protagonists, and even though Snake isn't in Metal Gear Solid 2, we do get Pliskin, who serves as sort of a spiritual successor for... Wait a second. This works for similar reasons as the previous step, in that it calls back to the previous game and rewards fans of the series. But it's also a nice way to sort of pass the torch to yourself. Be it showing how far a character has come thanks to your help, showing how far you've come by surpassing your former self, or appreciating how cool you were in the previous game. It is smart and cool and fun, and it makes me a happy anime boy. I'm talking straight up Mr. Rogers. Nope, doesn't track. Anyway, that's about it for today. Thank you so much for watching my video. Extra mega thank you to my Patreon supporters, Legolas Birub, It's Ya Boy Paddy, and Thomas Ebert, who has a message for his friend David Martin. He says, "Just because you can cargo throw edgeguard doesn't mean you're good at Smash." Don't know what that means, but David, you sound like a bitch. Seamless transition. Do all the arbitrary tasks that everyone says to do at the end of a YouTube video, and join us next time when our topic will be